Welcome back to the Christina Abdullah podcast, where every Sunday we have conversations that you are currently only having with yourself, but you wish you could be having with others. If you are watching this on YouTube, you are, of course, noticing that there is something different. We are on video. We have decided to take on videos for these conversations. And I'm not gonna lie, when I was showing up on audio, when I started this podcast, there was a selfish reason behind me doing audio only. I'm not gonna lie, but I was like, if I'm gonna be having these raw conversations, I don't know how this is gonna sound, but I was just like, I wanna be raw myself, like I don't wanna have to get ready for the camera. I just wanna, if in my trackies, my hair is all over the place. I can just lay down on the sofa, record, and just not think about it. But I also want this podcast to evolve with us, hence why we are doing videos now. And I understand that if someone is watching on YouTube, it is of course more engaging if you can see the video. So anyway, that whole rant to start off was to introduce the video to you, and now we can actually delve into today's topic, which is a favorite topic of mine. And as you can see from the title, it is about people pleasing. And we are going to be tackling this from the perspective of an ex-chronic people pleaser. To start off this episode, I really want to make this important distinction. And I feel like this will change the way that you see people pleasing. There's a huge difference between people pleasing and making people happy. Where people pleasing is all about you. Yes, it is all about you, despite what you may think. Whereas making people happy is actually about the other person. When I say people pleasing is more about you and it has nothing to do with the other person, is because most often than not, dare I say 99.9% of the time, is because you want to confirm something about yourself. And this comes from low self-worth. And the reason you people please is because you have this desire to be liked, to want other people's approval, and because you yourself, you think that you're not good enough. So you constantly are trying to prove to others how good enough you are. Whereas with wanting to make other people happy, it is genuinely about the other person. And when you're doing this, it is coming from a confident place and a place of self-worth. And we all know that realistically, in any world, not just in today's world, you cannot be liked by everyone. So what is the point in trying to people please? We'll go more into this throughout the episode, but when you people please, you are disrespecting yourself in the process. And not only that, you're not gaining respect from other people anyway. The reason that most people do it as well, apart from the 3 reasons that I mentioned earlier, is to avoid conflict. But the reason someone wants to avoid conflict is because we'd need to go down the childhood route if we're talking about this, and I'll touch on it briefly. But the reason why someone would want to avoid conflict is because they have been conditioned from a young age that if you speak your truth, if you don't do as the adult, for example, as the adult says, you will encounter conflict, you will be frowned upon, maybe you were shouted at as a child. So your nervous system, it associates not people pleasing, where you speak your truth, where you say no easily, where you don't over-explain, where you're just yourself, basically. Your inner child, your nervous system, it associates that with danger. So of course, subconsciously, we will do anything to not put ourselves in danger. Hence where the people pleasing comes from. Now, if you're listening to this, you're likely a people pleaser yourself. So what I'd want you to do is to step on the outside. I want you to look into your life, because as we're talking, you're gonna start identifying situations in your life that you don't like. What I want you to do is I want you to step outside and look at it from the outsider perspective. It's like you detach from your situations, because only when you detach, you can see clearly. And look at your relationships, look at your work situation, look at your life as a whole, and identify the situations that you're not happy with. And if you're gonna look at your relationships, for example, and there's a relationship that you're not happy with, there's a high chance that one of you, and it'll likely be you, is people pleasing. And I want you to look at this objectively, where you'll feel uncomfortable. It's fine. It's why you're listening to this, to change your situation. But we know that change comes with discomfort. There is no escaping that, okay? So it's okay if you're feeling uncomfortable, but we must accept that as a people pleaser, you do not have the boundaries. And if you don't have boundaries, you are being walked over. There's no way around it. You are being walked over and people do not respect you. No one respects a people pleaser. You are not only disrespecting yourself, but you entered a contradictory situation because you want to gain someone's approval and for your own reasons, as we said earlier, but you're trying to gain someone's approval. You are trying to be liked by someone, but in the process, you're driving them further away and they're not respecting you. So there's already a clash. And this is how you end up in a work situation where it's a whole shit show. Your relationships will be another level of shit show as well. And these can refer to both friendships and romantic relationships. But something I want to touch on before we move on to how to identify how and if you are people pleasing in your life and how you can stop this, because you can only stop it if you can identify it. I want to make another important distinction. Being nice is not the same as being kind, and somewhere along the way, growing up, these two have been intermixed, and for the life of me, I cannot stand the word nice. And a lot of people use it wrongly these days. Some people, they're like, oh, but you're so nice. No, I'm not nice. I am kind. So I want you to start distinguishing between those two words. You do not want to be nice in life. Nice doesn't get you anywhere. On the other hand, being kind, yes, all the time. Be a kind person. Even to the rude people, you don't have to stoop down to their level and be rude back. Always maintain your class, be kind, and never be nice. Nice equals wanting approval, wanting to be liked. Whereas you, as a kind person, I'm all for kindness. Now, on to the main part of the episode. Of course, you all want to know how to stop people pleasing. Number one, first, is you need to stop identifying it as a personality flaw. If you're constantly telling yourself, oh, but I am a people pleaser, I'm just too nice. No, it's not a personality flaw, it is a pattern. And a pattern that you have conditioned yourself into, but it is also one that you can break. When you say, I'm nice, I'm a people pleaser, it's just you're labeling yourself. And we know how harder it is to get out of a label. So when you are labeling yourself, you are attaching that to you. Whereas if with everything, if you detach, if you don't make that a part of you, a part of your personality, first of all, you're more objective towards it. And secondly, it is more easy to get rid of it. So just like you don't label yourself as I don't know if I can say the word without it being shadow banned. If you don't label yourself as a DEPRESSED person, if you label yourself as that, actually what I want to say, if you label yourself as that, you're more likely to engage in traits that apply to that type of person. And so I don't want to respell, so this is why I said that kind of person. But with labels, they end up being a self-fulfilling prophecy, is what I'm trying to say. Second, you need to identify where the roots of people pleasing. And most of these habits and patterns, they're all adopted in childhood. Most of the time, from the time you're born, actually, sometimes even before we are born, because we carry generational patterns, generational trauma. So it could be from before you are born. But anyway, from as early as possible until the age of 7, we develop these habits. At a stretch, up till 14 years old, but the bulk is up until 7 years of age. So you need to identify the root of that and why you do it, which is most of the time you wanting approval, you wanting to feel safe, and you want to feel that sense of belonging. And when I talk about approval, let's use an example here. If you were a child and you were constantly frowned upon, you're constantly being told that you were misbehaving. As a child, who doesn't freaking misbehave? Everyone misbehaves. But you're constantly being told, oh, behave, and every time you were rewarded for it, you would think that in order for you to be approved, in order for you to be accepted, you need to tone down yourself. You need to bite your tongue. You need to be the quiet person. And then you carry this into your teenage years, into your adult years, into your friendships, into your relationships. So you associate people pleasing, being nice, with belonging and safety, even though it is proving to be everything but that. But as you can see, people pleasing is often a form of protecting yourself from something, whether that is protecting yourself from being isolated, protecting yourself from being scolded, protecting yourself from ending up alone. It's not the case in reality, but that is what your subconscious and what your nervous system associates it with. So second is to identify the root cause and where it started from. Third, you need to identify how it is showing up in your adult life. You softening your opinion, you over-explaining. How many of you cannot say no and treat no as a complete sentence, and you feel like you need to follow up that no with an explanation of why you are saying no? Another way that it can show up in your adult life is, and this is more of a feeling, you will actually feel it physically more than anything, is when you say yes but your body is saying no. I'll give a real life example for this. Okay? So I was in Dubai on holiday with my parents, and it was just me and my mom, and we went to this acai shop that we're going every day, basically. I love their acais there. And the barista, he liked me. Like, I could tell. You just know. And even my mom realized, and one day, it was towards the time we were leaving Dubai, he asked me out for coffee. And he didn't really ask, he didn't just upright and say it, he didn't ask me out on a proper date. I think he was shy, but anyway, he just mentioned coffee after his shift and all that. And I just said, I'm not interested. And my mom was like, oh, you shouldn't have said that. You should have said that you're busy, or that you can't, or that you're leaving soon, because now he's gonna think that something is wrong with him. And that was the moment I realized how much I took on people pleasing from my parents. I love you, Mom, but God save me. That moment I was like, that's where it all clicked for me, most of it anyway. There were other things, but I was like, that's where it comes from. And it's funny because if you are a secure person and someone tells you, I'm not interested, just carry on with your day. Who cares? Now, it could be that someone takes offense to that, but that is not your problem. It says more about them than it says about you. Considering that you've done it in a respectful and kind way, there's nothing wrong with rejection. How people take it, that is up to them. It is not your problem. But anyway, saying yes when your body is clearly saying no. And you could apply it to your situation. How many times someone asked for your number and you just gave it because you felt bad saying no? Or you go on a date and you're not feeling the person, and at the end they try and kiss you and you just go along with it because you freeze, because you fear saying no. If you say no, you fear that they're gonna maybe lash out, or there's gonna be you're gonna be put in a dangerous situation if you reject them. The examples and finding out the roots, this is all specific to you, but as you can see, there's many ways it can come from. And the last way, one of the last ways it can show up is resentment. And this is a very strong one. Take a relationship, any relationship, to be honest, romantic relationship with your boss, relationship with one of your closest friends, someone you're constantly trying to please. You will start developing resentment towards that person. You will get this inner feeling where you're like, every time you please them, every time you do something against your will, every time you say yes when you want to say no, you feel a part of you chipping away. You feel and you hate that person just a bit more. Fourth, I think we're actually on to the fourth point, but I want you to ask yourself, what is it costing you? Because it's not just time and energy, it is costing you your self-trust. And every time that you people please, you are eroding your self-trust and you are eroding your identity, because you need to ask yourself, who would you actually be if you weren't people-pleasing, if you actually spoke your mind, if at work you didn't say yes to getting people coffee when you wanted to say no and tell them to get their own coffee, where your boss asked you to stay overtime and you said yes instead of saying, okay, I will, but are you going to pay me for that? And that should not really be a question. You say it as a rhetorical question and as a matter of fact, but who would you be if you actually spoke your truth? If you stopped people pleasing? Would you be doing the job that you are doing now? Would you be in the relationship that you are now? Would you have certain friends that you have now? It's scary but simultaneously exciting at the same time, because you could literally uncover a whole persona, a totally different persona, a totally different identity that is currently buried under all that people pleasing. Who would you actually be if you had the boundaries? And this brings me to my fifth point, which is very important, because it is not enough to say, oh, just start setting boundaries. Setting boundaries alone is nowhere near enough to stop people pleasing, because boundaries without identity, it's not gonna get you anywhere. You need to know who you are before you first set the boundaries, because first of all, you will revert back. However, just set boundaries is not enough, because currently your nervous system associates honesty with danger. So if you were to just set boundaries, you're gonna revert back, because of course your subconscious is always trying to keep you safe. So if it still associates boundaries with danger, you're always gonna revert back. One of the most important things that you can do is you identify who you are behind people pleasing. As I said before, there is a whole new identity under all this people pleasing. Find out who you are first, and then you have the stable foundations on what you can develop your boundaries, because boundaries without identity, they will not stick. As I said, your nervous system and your subconscious will associate all of this with danger. Your subconscious is trying to protect you. It is always trying to keep you safe. So you will always go back to people pleasing. And the last point, which leads on from the fifth, I lost track of the number of points. But the last point, which leads on from identity, is to rebuild your self-trust. And by the way, this is something that I really touch on in my work. So make sure that you're subscribed to the podcast. Make sure that you subscribe to YouTube as well, if you prefer videos. And I will also be uploading extras on YouTube, and to follow Instagram for daily life, daily connection. And yeah, as I said, this is something that I really work on. Me, myself, I've reworked my whole identity. I would say I'm completely unrecognizable from how I was a few years ago to how I am now. Of course, it is still work in progress, but I've done it for myself, and now I'd like to help you along with others to do the same, because I can tell you, when you really discover who you are, when you trust yourself, there is nothing like it, and everything in your life starts changing. Not only you will feel better about yourself, the level of self-trust is another level, and you are so much more magnetic. And I don't mean this just to your partners. You're just magnetic to life. You attract anything that you want. Whether that is jobs, money, people, everything, your whole life will change when you trust yourself to insane levels and you know who you are underneath. The best thing that you can do for yourself. And that is it for today's episode. And to end this, I'd like to leave you with two reflections to do for yourself. First reflection is, I want you to take an honest look in your life, okay? And I'd want you to ask yourself, who are you trying to please at your own expense? And second, what would you change? How would your life change if you stopped people pleasing? Because when you identify where you're going astray, shall I say that word, where you're going astray, and you're honest about it, and then uncover who you could be if you stop doing that, how would your life look like? You have a reason to start building that identity identity, you have the foundations, you can start building that identity, and you've got your why as to why you should step away and stop people pleasing. Thank you for joining me for today. It's been, this topic is something that I love talking about, and because, as I said, it is truly life-changing, and these are the conversations that we have every single week. But I will leave you with that for today, and I will see you next week for another conversation that you have with yourself, but you wish you could have with others.